there, my name's JJ. I am a player on Random Encounter. I play Mosron, who most of you are probably aware of is a Hell Knight fighter. This is a bit of a recorded section, just looking at the concept of stats first, and then a personality for a character, or building the personality and concept before putting all the stats together. From my perspective, it's a little bit of both, which I appreciate is a terrible non-answer. So what I tend to have is a loose concept of a character I'd like to play. So probably that just says it all, really. We're not going to use Moz at the moment. We're going to use Dozirus, who is a retired character from a previous D&D campaign, D&D 5e. Dozirus was put together because I had this wild thought about what would a WWF or WWE fighter look like in D&D. You know, could we get the grapple rules working in any kind of dramatic way? Could we throw some theatre in there? Could we like spice that up a bit? And probably a lot of my characters also come from that kind of background. The problem is, once you've got a great concept, how do you make it work? And that's where it then devolves into, actually we need to take a look at the stats first. Okay, so the character I want to play needs to have a good strength stat. That's great. I can sacrifice a little bit of con for that. Go for the not Mr. Universe. It's the World's Strongest Man. A little bit more World's Strongest Man, a little bit less Mr. Universe. More strength than con. Okay, we're going to need some dex in there. Okay, so we need to shuffle the stats over there a bit. Most of the campaigns I've done have not been dice roll for stats. Most of them. Or they have been do a dice roll and you can re-roll your worst stat and your best stat. So your top and your bottom can shift dramatically. It can bring you more towards the average, or it can throw you even further one way or the other. And then you get to try and figure your life out. So do I like stats first then personality, or personality concept first? I think stats are important. Stats are critically important to what you're playing. There's actually 3 components in there. Concept first. What do you want to play? What do you enjoy playing? What do you want to try and get out on the field? You know, what's the feeling of this thing? Going back to Dozirus, the concept first. You know, I want to play a grapply guy who can boost his buddies. Okay, that's entirely doable. We were playing outcasts and non-standard characters. I don't think there's such a thing as a standard character in D&D. We're playing non-standard characters, so he's a Minotaur. Because why not? And we took some levels in Fighter, and we took some levels in Bard. Because of the whole grandstanding thing that you get with WWE. You get the whole like ring show that goes with it, the whole pre-show and post, the grand theatrics of it all, boosting your buddies, negging on your enemies. It kind of made sense to throw that in. But that's more we start leaning into stats. Okay, so we've got a loose concept of what we want to be when we hit level 15 as a number. You know, towards the mid-end game. You know, we've got a plan for where we want it to get to. Okay, well, let's roll that back. As we get to your stats, and okay, so we're going to need more strength than the con. He's going to be a little bit of a glass cannon. He's going to need a reasonable amount of charisma, because that's where your bardic stuff comes from. But it doesn't need too much. And we can maybe drop down that intelligence a bit. Keep the wisdom in place, maybe. Or maybe not, do a bit of a trade-off. And you can kind of not min-max. I hate min-maxing. I hate like going down to 8 or 6 or otherwise, just in order to get those boosts up towards the top level. Nah. If I'm doing points by, then you know we'll hit 10s, we'll hit 8s, as a bit of a trade-off, but we won't dive down, because I like my characters to have some weaknesses and some strengths, but be fairly middle of the line, probably on average. So concept comes up, WWE Fighter, stats, we get those balanced out based on a roll in the end of the day. Rolled fairly good. My highest stat was at the end of the day strength, followed by charisma. Then I think it was wisdom, and then it all went downhill from there. I think wisdom was about a 14 or a 12. Wasn't the best. Then you got the racial balancing. So you've got concept of where you want to be. You've got the stats of what your character is when he starts now at level 1. Personality then comes in. So to me, the personality then explains the stats, and the stats explain the personality. It's a little bit reciprocal. The guy has low intelligence. Well, it kind of explains why he's a fighter and why he's punchy. Okay, so that goes down that way. But you know, he's obviously got ambitions and he's got dreams because of that charisma. He's looking to lean into that. You don't develop yourself. You don't become a leader. You don't groom your aesthetic. You don't learn how to lead a crowd without having some kind of plan or dream or hope. Intent. You don't get a high charisma, a 14 or a 16 charisma, without putting some effort in, unless you're an elf, in which case you're a salad. Them's the breaks. So yeah, the stats inform the personality. So he ended up being high strength. Okay, so he's a fighter background. That makes sense. He's always looking for his big break. He's got a memento as his random rolled item. Okay, so instantly the items start falling together. He's brawny but not smart, but he's got the wisdom to realise that you either end up dead in this game or you get out of it. So he studies and he thinks and he starts learning people. Starts learning to manipulate just a little bit what gets under people's skin. Okay, well that explains the bardic side. That inspiration. He knows what to say and when to say it. The cutting words, when to knock someone. Just a little bit off their game. So that informs someone who is probably not the best spoken, but knows how to use what he's got. So stats gives personality for me. Stats first, then personality. You learn the story from what they are. And the concept, as always, comes first for me, because then you've got an idea of the character you want to play. I mean, it could end up being completely different. Still like a little bit like telling the future. One, you may not make it to level 15. Yeah, it's the way it goes. Not all campaigns get past level 10. So the idea of having a dream in mind, having a loose concept. So the idea of having a loose concept in mind is kind of important, because when you look at the future, it's one of 100 possible futures. You've got your plan. That's great. You've got your vision. That's even better. The DM's got plot. And as collaborative as the start of the game is, at the end of the day, you end up with choices. And you're then running it through the personality of the character. You know, is this guy or is this Minotaur likely to take this deal? Well, he's low intelligence. There's a very good chance of it. Then again, has he been in this kind of situation before? Are there tales of people who have been in this situation before? And how has it turned out for them? Intelligence versus wisdom. Is he going to lean on the wisdom? Or is he going to take the short-term benefit? Take bigger risks? Get a bigger reward? Is he like that more reckless towards the start of the story and then develops into a slightly more sensible character, because not only has he got the tales of ancient legends to work with from the bardic side, but also he's got his own learnt experiences that you've got through the character, through their actual storyline. Maybe a couple of stat boots into wisdom. Maybe one or two into intelligence to bring you up to a modicum. Maybe bring you up to 10. Get him off that 8. So to me, concept first. Absolutely concept first. Then stats. Find out who he is. And then find out the why of where they go and what they do. Or at least that's my way of thinking on it. Take care.